There we go. All right, cool. So thanks again for taking time out of your evening tonight. The meat and potatoes of my race pass is race management. This is everything else that we do is linked to the data and information that you put into race management. From your entries to your lineups to your results, getting the data to your scoring system, calculating your points and payouts and those types of things. So I'm just going to start by going right into race management here. And we'll kind of get started here. The first screen that you come to when you come to race management is the setup tab. In setup, you're really only talking about two things here in the setup tab. You're talking about pill draw options. You're talking about transponder options. In the pill draw, the options include various auto draw and manual entry options. Manual entry or auto draw before you find a driver. Same with after you find a driver. But for the auto draw, there's also a during driver selection, which is the default, which is what I like to use because it makes it a one-step process. The next options here include pill draw options, transponder options. We're talking about pill draw, which is pretty straightforward, right? Do you use transponders? And if so, do you have rentals? And that's just kind of what this comes down to. A couple of other pieces of information in this screen. Max pill is down here, which just is what it sounds like, the max pill number, whether that's 100 or 75 or 50 or whatever you want it to be on a per class basis. And then the rebase pill, which becomes the new number one. Think of it that way. A lot of the facilities that we work with or go to, they like to, in the driver's meeting, draw a poker chip that is the new number one, so somebody draws a 26, let's say. Type 26 in the rebase pill option, that becomes the new one. And then everything else kind of follows in after that numerically. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome. The only other thing on the screen is a required registration option. This works hand in hand with the registrations and season management to work as a license or a membership. So if you have an annual registration out there and you want that to work as a license or membership to be eligible to compete at your racetrack or earn points at your racetrack or with your series, required registration can be used there. So I'm not going to turn this on because I want the training to be a little bit more streamlined. But required registration, in effect, will allow you to, when you enter a driver, it'll tell you that if that driver hasn't registered, it'll ask you to allow them to compete with a temporary license or enter them with no license. And then when it's time to calculate points at the end of the night, you can see the option to apply points to only licensed or temp licensed drivers or to all drivers or, however you want that to work. So a lot of times this comes up probably more often with a series than it does with a track, but it comes up for tracks as well. A track will say, how do I only give points to drivers who have registered? And it's that required registration option here. That way, if the driver is registered via My Race Pass, you can only apply points to those licensed drivers. That's how that works. Again, I'm not turning it on for the purposes of this webinar, but we have Help Center articles and YouTube videos on that specific topic. And if you have questions about it, encourage you to send me an email, support@myracepass.com. Entries then becomes the next step. There's 3 different ways to find a driver on this entry screen, but entries is driver shows up to the racetrack at the back gate. They're being entered into your event. I know that sometimes with naming conventions regionally around the country, some people call this registrations, right? You're registering for the event. For My Race Pass purposes, my registrations come through season management. That's gathering driver information before the season or before the event. That's pre-registering. And race night being put into the event, we call that entries. So this is race night entry list. Now, there's nothing stopping you from adding your entries before race night if you want the entry list to be shown in the week leading up to the event. But most often, 99% of the time, this is race night stuff. 3 ways to find a driver. 1, competitors list on the left-hand side of the screen. This will show you all of the drivers who have raced with you before in that class or who have registered in that class. So those 2 pieces of information will get you into this competitors list. This competitors list can be filtered by car number, right? So if I type a number in here, it brings up results based off of what I type in there. So it can be filtered. You can also have this show pre-entries if you have an event-specific registration. By track, if you're a series, all the entries by track. Same thing if you're a track, all the entries last time that series was here, those types of things. But most often, you're leaving it at this competitors list. You're picking the driver from the left-hand list. That's one way to find a driver. Second way to find a driver is the scan barcode option. If you've got a barcode scanner at the back gate, You can either assign an MRP card to a driver, which a lot of the sanctioning bodies we work with do that, or you can, or if a driver claims their profile, they'll have that barcode in their app, and you can scan the card, and it houses all of their driver data, prevents duplicate profiles from being made, those types of things. So if you want to get a stack of MRP cards sent to you, let us know. We can send those out, assign those to your drivers, and it makes it a really fast and simple process, basically bypassing the search, entering the correct, the correct driver profile into an event. Third way to find a driver, probably the most commonly used way, is the search at the top of the screen, just a string of text, right? So if I start typing a name, search results appear based off of what I've typed. So if I type Austin Lloyd, I can click Austin Lloyd out of this list. There I am. Every driver who's ever raced at any track that uses My Race Pass will already have a driver profile. I want to make that absolutely clear. Any driver who's ever raced at any track that uses My Race Pass has a driver profile listed. So when you go down to the create new option here, this really should be reserved for a rookie driver or somebody who, you know, has only ever raced on an island of a track that doesn't use My Race Pass, which is becoming more and more rare in circle track racing. Creating new should be rare. And the other piece of that is sometimes duplicate profiles do get created. And so if you run across somebody who's got two driver profiles listed that are clearly the same person, email them to support@myracepass.com so we can merge them. But no matter how you find a driver, this is the screen that comes up when you go to put them in the list. There's four things that we need to put somebody on an entry list. And I'm going to talk about every feature in this screen, but there's really only four that are necessary at most tracks, okay? First being the pill draw number. Because I have it set to the at check-in auto draw, it drew me automatic. Of course, it drew me a 100, but it automatically draws a pill number for that driver. I just have bad luck tonight, so it drew me a 100. If you have a manual entry option, you have to type something in here based off a lotto wheel or poker chip or however you're doing their pill draw. Second thing in here is car number. Just what it sounds like, right? Number on the door or on the wing. The program does not allow duplicate car numbers per class. So if I go in here as number 23, somebody else shows up and says they're number 23, you'd have to put like an X or an initial or a special character in front or behind or whatever. It does accept special characters. You can use an asterisk for a star. You can use a plus sign. You can use a $sign. I, as an announcer, think that that should be illegal, but it's not, and it can be put into My Race Pass. Next thing is car owner information. Car owner comes up in two circumstances. One, if you're doing owner points. Not a lot of places do owner points anymore, more series than tracks. But if you're doing owner points, then it's important for every driver to have a car owner listed. Even if that driver is their own owner, you can see how I've done it, Austin Lloyd Racing for the driver Austin Lloyd. But however it needs to be listed there as a car owner for owner points. Second instance in which owner becomes necessary is for payout purposes. Somebody other than the driver is getting paid for that night. Somebody other than the driver is getting paid. The payee needs to be listed in this box as the car owner. Whether that's a driver's LLC or a business or a different person or whatever it's going to be listed as on the check, basically, is how I advise you to put that in the box. There is an extremely rare circumstance where driver, car owner for points purposes, and payee are actually three different people. And so that's where the alternate payee field comes into play. But again, really rare circumstance where car owner for points purposes is not the person getting paid. There's actually a third-party payee. That's what alternate payee can be. So yeah, it doesn't come up a lot, but it is available. Fourth and final thing that's necessary in order for somebody to be put into the entry list, if you're using transponders, is the transponder number. Type in the full transponder number that's on the front of the transponder. If it's their own transponder, right? If I click into this box, it brings up a list of the transponders that they'd used previously. If it's their own, mark it the default. The same can be true for car owner. The same can be true for number. You can mark these as defaults to help your entry process speed up every event subsequent to your first. But for transponder, if it's not their own, if they're renting from you, mark the transponder rented box. At the end of the night, there's a report that you can run called the entry or the entry report that will show you everyone who rented a transponder from you. And right, those are the 4 things that are really necessary to put somebody on an entry list, right? Pill draw, car number, owner if it applies, and transponder number if it applies. If you're a track that doesn't do the pill draw, then you don't have to worry about that. If you're a track that doesn't run transponders, you don't have to worry about that. I mean, all these things those are the 4 things that are most necessary. Other items on this page, lineup override being the first. Lineup override for each driver, that's necessary. You'll be able to use to start them at the back for the heat races or for all races. So if you choose lineup override, it'll ignore whatever lineup option you pick, push that driver to the back if they're a rookie or shaking down a new car or whatever the reason is. There's really no reason to make a competitor inactive. We'll leave that box checked. Payment amount, payment method, and contingency information is only turned on for a select few profiles, so I'm not really going to cover that here. The last thing that I'll have you look at then is the confirm memberships area. And this will just show you if they've registered or not, right? So if they filled out a registration, it'll show up over here in confirm memberships. But from there, I can add, and I'm just going to do what I need to do to put 10 cars in the entry list so we can have ourselves a little demo race. You can see, because of defaults, car number, owner, transponder number, everything after the first night, you're really just kind of confirming that this information is still correct. Chuck Chowder Jr. is going in. You're still number 65. Owner is still here. Transponder is still here. Add and just continue down the list. So it becomes pretty straightforward, everything after the first night, if you set your defaults correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and add 10 drivers to my list. And there is my 10 car entry list here for tonight. From there, I'm going to move ahead to the races tab. The races tab is one of those things that I typically do in advance. I do before I go to the racetrack. Because I generally have a pretty good idea of how many cars I'm going to get. And then I just adjust as necessary on race night. But you can do it from scratch every race night as well. You can either copy from previous races or you can add from scratch. And think of the races tab as the start of your format. You're telling the program what types of races you're going to run so you can filter those into lineups later on. So for this purpose, I'm going to have everybody qualify, and I'm going to have everybody run an A feature. But you see, you can add heat races. I can add dashes. I can add hot laps. I can add special type races, usually used for like a non-qualifiers type deal. But for tonight, qualifying and feature. What else can you do here? You can put in the number of laps and the number of cars that go to tech. I really recommend, if you're running a qualifying type race, that you do not put a number of laps in there. A lot of people's first reaction is to put a 2 there because everybody gets 2 laps in qualifying, right? Well, then what happens is Orbits or Westhold, depending on what you're using, just checker flags the race automatically after the first car. That's a bad time. That's not what you want. So don't put laps in the laps field here. Other things you can do on the screen once you've added your race types is you can change the name of your races. So if this is going to be, time trials instead of qualifying, if you're going to call this your main event instead of your A feature, if you're going to call it, Bob's Garage 250 instead of A feature 1, do whatever you need to do with the race names. You can add race sponsors here too. It's my Lincoln Electric time trials. It's my H&H mobile home A feature. It's whatever you want it to be. The only other thing on this screen that gets super relevant is your transfers. And I would say for a brand new racetrack, this is on race night number 1. The thing that gets overlooked most often is setting your transfers here. You get to your A feature. The program tells you don't have any cars in this race. You call me freaking out and asking why. It's because you didn't set transfers typically. So for me, this is going to be extremely simple. I'm just going to transfer them all from qualifying to the A feature. But if you had enough cars, you could take the top 5 per heat to the A, everyone else to a B, whatever you wanted to do that way. If you're doing a passing point style format, then you would choose from group instead of per race. And then as a group, you could take like your top 16 to the A, everyone else to the B, and then your top 4 from the B to get your 20 car field, however you wanted to do that. But if you take the total number from the heats to the A feature, as opposed to, 5 per race or whatever else. And then if you really want to, you can start your drivers 3 wide. That's up to you. But that's really it for the races tab. Jump ahead to lineups. And this is, really the one of the big selling points of my race pass is how simple and easy it is to do lineups. There are so many formats built into my race pass in terms of how you can line cars up. There's over 100 heat race options. Qualifying, there's not many, but I want you to know and be aware that whatever you're doing for a format, If you feel like you can't make it work in My Race Pass, it's probably because you haven't reached out to us yet. 99% of the time, we can help point you in the right direction for how to organize your races tab, how to organize your lineups and what lineup options to pick, and those types of things. So I'm going to calculate lineups here for qualifying. Again, there's not a ton for qualifying. We got them random or by point standing or by last name or by hot lap time or whatever. I'll just do it based off the pill draw. Qualifying from pill draw. There's my qualifying order. Now I've got a lineup created. Those lineups, I want to just kind of explain in short here where they get published to, right? Obviously, they're in the My Race Pass app. As soon as you calculate lineups, as soon as you save as lineups in the lower right here, they're available in the app. People will be able to see the lineups. Now, I can still make a change if I need to, right? This guy is going to, only get one lap because of a penalty or whatever. He's going to move to the back of the order. I can resave. Lineups are updated everywhere lineups are available. A lot of folks still want to print lineups. Totally fine. We have a reports option at the top of the screen that'll allow you to print lineups in 3 different formats. I'm not going to show you every format here. I like the lineup sheet because it gives me number, name, hometown in lineup order. As an announcer, that's what I like to see. But you can do whatever you want. There's 3 different lineup options there. The other place lineups get posted is something called our lineup monitor screen. This replaces writing lineups out on a whiteboard or stapling paper or whatever. Have some kind of screen up connected to the internet, open the lineup monitor. This will auto refresh every 30 seconds or so, 25 to 30 seconds, and will only show you upcoming lineups. So as soon as you calculate a lineup, it shows here. You'll notice there's also some format information here from the races tab on the left. But then as soon as you save a race as completed, the lineup actually falls off of the screen. So this purely is only showing upcoming lineups. If you've got somebody that you're paying to write lineups on a whiteboard somewhere, have this screen up instead. Pay them to do something that's important at your racetrack. Let My Race Pass take care of this part of it. If you can get a TV or something in a central location in your pits. But from there, the question becomes, how do I get my entry and lineup data to my timing system? The answer to that question is MRP Live. MRP Live is a separate application that lives between My Race Pass and your scoring system. It's extremely simple to connect, and it allows the two to communicate with each other. It allows all of your entries and lineups into your live timing system. It allows your results from your live timing system back into My Race Pass seamlessly, and it allows live timing and scoring to work in the app so people can see, running order and lap times and those types of things. Connecting the two is extremely simple. I'm going to do this with Orbits for my qualifying race. And then for my feature race, I'm going to do this in Race Manager. So if you're a Westhold track, kind of tune out here for a minute. But we'll come back to you when we do our feature here. So in the distribution tab in Orbits, there is an IP address and a port number listed under your scoreboard feed. First thing you want to do in Orbits is make sure the scoreboard feed is turned on, right? Make sure the dot's green. But once you got that, type the IP address and the port number in here. Port number is basically always 50,000. And the IP address, unless your internet service provider does weird stuff, it really won't change, right? So IP address, port number. That stuff probably won't change. You'll set that the first night, and you really won't touch it after that. The only thing that'll change on a week-to-week basis is this connection code. So if I go to the MRP Live tab in My Race Pass, copy the connection code, paste it into MRP Live, or you can just click the Launch from Web button and open MRP Live with the connection code already built in. Either way, I connect. And once I've connected, I just have to press Get Lineups here, and that pushes all the information over. So what you're going to find is your night is extremely repetitive. The most important thing is your entry screen, right? We have to get the right driver with the right car number, with the right transponder number. That is so important for how the rest of the night runs. After that, calculate your lineups, push the information to your scoring system, score the race, bring the results back. And then you're going to do that in a loop all night long. Basically, calculate lineups, push the live timing, bring the results back over and over again until your night is done. So now that I've pressed Get Lineups here, I can go to Orbits and in the registration tab, and instead of managing a competitor database or creating groups and runs or anything like that, I'm just going to import everything. I'll import the groups first. That's all my entry data. You should only have to do that once a night, unless you've got late arrivers or whatever. But it gives me, class, car number, name, transponder number, all that kind of stuff, right? Now that I've got my competitors entered, my groups entered, I can import the runs next. Import run, finish. Now here's my qualifying race that we've calculated. So we're importing the groups at the beginning of the night to bring over all the class data. And then every time I have new lineups, I import the runs. That's all I have to do. So I will time qualifying 1, which means that we get to take out MyLaps's awesome version of Indianapolis Motor Speedway here. And we'll run ourselves a little fake race for qualifying. So I'll purple and green, and I'll start the cars, and we'll have a fake race. Now, while this is running, there's one other tool that I want to show you in my race pass. We showed you the lineup monitor already. The other thing here that I want to show you is in the MRP Live dropdown, there's a lap viewer, which is just all of the live timing features in the browser. Most of the time it's white. I have dark mode turned on. Doesn't matter. Does the same thing. A lot of information here. And I really encourage you to put this in front of your announcer. First off, because my race is titled qualifying, it's showing me by default the best lap view. So if your race name has the word qualifying or time trials or practice or hot laps or anything like that, it'll automatically default to the best lap view. Other times, it'll give you the running order view by default, right? But in qualifying, I don't care about the running order. I care about the best lap. There's also a view for positions gained in a race, who's passed the cars. There's also a view for average lap time, which will give you the average over the last 3 laps as well. And there's also a view for lap leaders. You can see who's led the most laps, all of those types of things. All information to make your announcer sound significantly smarter on the broadcast. Please put this in front of an announcer, especially if you're doing a pay-per-view. But from there, I'll go back to orbits. We'll stop the fake race. And then in orbits, I'm going to checkered flag and stop the race. Once the checkered flag and stop has happened, now I can come back to my race pass. And in my race pass, I can go to the results tab. If I want to, I can manually put the results in the order that they finished, right? Just click on the name on the left in the order that they finished, or I can type the number down here and press enter. Doesn't matter. Or because I'm using live timing in orbits or Westhold, I can just click the link at the top of the screen, bring the result profile or result file over, and save as completed. This is also where you can mark your DNF, DNS, DQ, or black flag. You find out 20 minutes later, winner was lighted to scales, mark DQ, resave, everything's fine. Moves them to the bottom of the list. But regardless of how you do that, basically now we just completed the first cycle. Now we'll go into the second cycle. If you're running qualifying heats and features, you'll have 3 cycles. For me, I'm just having 2. So I've got my results are in. Now I can do lineups for the A feature. I'm going to calculate lineups based off of qualifying. But as you can see, like I said before, there are tons of ways to line up cars in my race pass. Whether you're doing it by qualifying or heats or points or handicaps or whatever. I mean, we can find a way to make this work for you. But A feature from qualifying is what I can pick, calculate. Here is my A feature lineup, which means that I now need to get the heck out of orbits so we can do the A feature in Westhold. Close the orbit server, all those types of things. Okay, so now here I am, A features calculated. If we go back to that lineup monitor that we talked about before, qualifying is gone because that race has been saved as completed. I've created the A feature 1 in my lineups tab, so that's the lineups that's showing here, right? My top 5 are going to tech. It's listed here on the screen. 20 laps. It's listed here on the screen. Again, just eliminate a job for somebody so they can do something to continue to help, whether that be drivers or fans or whatever else, get more information about their night. Like we can take this person and have them do a better job. But from there, again, the same cycle. I've created lineups. Now I can, and actually I have to connect the race manager. So let me open race manager and we can show you what this looks like in race manager. It's the same. MRP Live still houses an IP address and a port number. They're just in a different spot now, right? Network broadcast control, IP address, type it in the box. Port number is still always 50,000. That didn't change. So we're just pulling an IP and a port from a different place now. And then in my race pass in MRP Live, the MRP Live code is the same code that comes from the same spot. I can copy and paste it into the box and connect. And once I am connected, I can press the Get Lineups button here, so nothing about that process changes. And now when I come to Race Manager, Now I've got a competitors list, which is the same thing as the groups and orbits, and an A feature 1 ready to time. That's my lineup that I've got. So the process doesn't really change, right? I calculate my lineups, I press get lineups, and it's actually easier in Race Manager. I don't have to import anything. The import automatically shows. So I will time my race here. Race Manager doesn't provide a fake racetrack, but the process is the same and everything about it is the same. So we're going to give these cars 2 laps here so we can have an official race. 1 and 2. Checkered flag, stop. Again, nothing about your green to checker format changes at all in your timing system. And now I can come back to results. And in results, I can import from the link the same exact way. Save is completed. We're all good. Now, whether I'm using orbits or Westhold, there is one thing that I want to make mention of. If a transponder number is wrong and you go into your timing system and you override a transponder number and, pair it with whatever name is supposed to be on, we've all seen that, right? Transponder number is wrong. You fix it in timing. When you do that result import, if the transponder number that you got in My Race Pass and the transponder number that you got in orbits don't match, My Race Pass will still match the result file based off of the name and car number. If those two also match, it'll understand that that's the result. And then in the My Race Pass entry list, it'll fix the transponder number to whatever you typed in manually here. So you really should only affect you the first time that car's on the track. Just wanted you to be aware that that is a feature of the program with that transponder fix. And that's been really a valuable thing. Also, if you've got a car that is in the lineup but does not come back in the result file, My Race Pass will automatically add him to the bottom of the results and mark him a DNS. So car never went on the track, but he was in the initial lineup. My Race Pass automatically marks that car a DNS, did not start. So that's a feature of the program as well. And then again, up in reports, I can print the entry list. I can print the transponder list. I can print the lineups, the results, all of those types of things. I can also share any lineup or result to social media with one click. I don't have a Facebook account for a fake racetrack, but if I did, it would be easy to post here. The Twitter integration has gone astray over the since Elon Musk bought it. So right now it's only Facebook, but that is an option that you got available. And then there's a media format that is just a string of text. I like to copy this and paste it at the bottom of a news article when I write a race recap. And that's really all I use that for. Last step here then is points and pay. Points and pay is something that you can do in advance to make your race night a little bit more seamless, right? So that's done through schemes. Settings, upper right, points and pay schemes. You can create a points and pay scheme, multiple or one or many or whatever you want to do. Or bring over global schemes like from IMCA or USRA or WSOTA or ASCS or whatever. And you can add these schemes in advance. And I'll show you what the interface looks like to create a scheme. You're really just adding in the race types that are earning points and putting in the point delineations, whether that's A feature, B feature, qualifying, heat races, special, whatever. I mean, as many race types as you can run, you can add point options for those race types. Pay options are the exact same interface, just with dollars instead of point differentials. But you go ahead and create your schemes in advance. And then when I go to the race night, at the end of the race night, I just add one of the pre-created schemes that I've already used, right? Let's say tonight's an ASCS race. Use a sprint car pay scheme. This is where you can decide if you're going to add points to competitors or owners or teams or both or all or many or whatever you want to do. This is also where you can decide I only want to apply points to license or temp license only drivers, which I don't have any right now. So remove points from everybody. But that's how that would work if you're using that license check. And I can add. Now my points and pay are done. Within a half hour, the points will be updated on your website. Within a half hour, the points will be updated in the My Race Pass app. This is done. Now you can add adjustments to this if needed. Right? So I want to dock this guy 20 points for rough driving, or I want to give this guy a $20 bonus for being the hard charger. You can adjust your points and pay per race type. But either way, when you get that done and saved, as long as your scheme is correct, the other adjustments should be very short and simple, and this should be very quick and efficient to create your points and calculate your payouts. Last step then is the Create Payments button. That pushes everything to the Payments tab of Season Management. If we were watching on Monday, you'd heard that I said that I'd come back to this. Well, here we are. You can do a couple of things in this screen. One, you can create checks, right? So enter the starting check number. As long as you've got the check layout that's correct, you can print whatever order you want. I'm going to choose running order this time, and I am going to create checks. And now I can print the checks. They come right out the printer as long as you got the printer and the paper, your checks are printing now. And so that's one of the biggest pain points of a race night, done in basically what amounts to, 2 minutes. You can print a report that I like to use for drivers signing for their checks at the back gate or at the pay window or whatever. You bring up this report. It's got the driver name. If the payee name, if the payee is a car owner, driver's name is listed in parentheses, how much they were owed, and the check number. And I just have them sign in the white space. That way I know who's claimed their money and who hasn't, which can be valuable. You can also print mailing labels. I know a lot of tracks will still mail checks after race day during the next week. So you can print mailing labels to make that process easier. And there's also an export option for QuickBooks. You can export all of this information to QuickBooks. It downloads a .iif file as long as you have the bank and expense account matching what's in your QuickBooks. You can upload that into your QuickBooks. I believe it's only available for the desktop version of QuickBooks, the online version of QuickBooks. I think there's a workaround, but I'm no expert in QuickBooks. But this does work seamlessly with the desktop version and all of that stuff. So that's all well and good. Yeah, that's a race night. I mean, it seems crazy that I can tell you every single step of what happens in a race night in a half hour, but the reality of the situation is that the interface of my race pass is fairly simple. I like to tell people, because it's true, everyone that works on this and everyone that's here has some interest in or background in motorsports. We've got announcers, we've got former drivers, we've got a current driver, we've got former track owners and operators, we've got series operators. I mean, there's just a ton of people that are involved in motorsports that are passionate about this here at My Race Pass. And so for that reason, we feel like we've got this, pretty close to what it needs to be for just about everybody. If you've got questions or you have some issue with how it works at your facility for your purpose, we're absolutely open to working with you on that as well. Send us an email, support@myracepass.com. We want to try to our goal in this is to make your tower as efficient as it possibly can be and run as smoothly as it possibly can be, because we know good help is hard to find. So if you're the good help, or we want to make your life easier, that's really our only goal here. There was one other thing I wanted to show here for the end of the night. Let me go back to the payments tab here. There is a 1099 report that we've got that's available. I'm not going to delve into it too deeply here, but I just want you to know that, there is a report here that folks use at the end of the year that shows every payee, whether that's an owner or a competitor, how much money they made as long as it was more than $600, and has the addresses listed as well. So you can go through all of this stuff, and it makes 1099s at the end of the year significantly easier. You can export this into an Excel sheet. You can print this. You can do whatever you need with it. I have in our help center, I recorded a video with a tax software that I like called W2Mate, where I've exported this report as an Excel sheet, imported it into W2Mate, combined that with Social Security numbers wherever you hold Social Security numbers. Obviously, we don't store them in My Race Pass, but if you have a different Excel sheet that you store them in, upload this, combine that in an Excel sheet with the Social Security numbers, and you can either print or export to send to a tax office your 1099s. The video is about 9 minutes long. So in the grand scheme of things, if you can accomplish your 1099 work at the end of the year in 9 minutes, that's a big win, right, for every type of racetrack. So encourage you to look that video up and watch it. Helps with this 1099 report, helps with W2Mate, all of those types of things. So yeah, definitely take a look at that. And then, September, October, November, whenever you start to dig into that kind of stuff, don't be afraid to reach out to us. That's what we're here for. We have a team of people in our support department that are wanting to help you make your race night work better, wanting to help you set your schedules up easier, wanting to help you make your taxes at the end of the year go better, wanting to help you understand fantasy racing and websites and tickets and all of those types of things. There are so many things that My Race Pass does. That's the biggest piece of feedback we get from racetracks is, I didn't know you did that too. There are so many different things. We want to help you understand them. If you have questions, please reach out. That's all I really have for tonight. All of our webinars are uploaded to YouTube. So go to youtube.com, search My Race Pass. This one will be uploaded tomorrow at some point. All of our others for this year and previous years are already in there. Invite you back on Friday. On Friday, we'll talk about tickets, including reserve tickets, talk about season passes, multi-day ticket packages. We'll talk about websites. We'll talk about news articles, all of those types of things. So looking forward to that on Wednesday. But I'm going to stop the recording here. I'm going to be done for the night. You guys, I really appreciate you taking the time, tuning in. And thank you again for being a member of Team MRP.
Thank you.